The state of the games industry is something that I've been talking about and thinking about lately a lot here in the channel, personally as well. And as of late, my YouTube feed looks very much like retro everything. And it's actually quite interesting because the more this generation of PlayStation and Xbox and the latest generation of consoles, except for the Switch, is around, and it's been about 4 years already, the more you kind of start realizing that obviously the amount of super amazing hits is not as much as it used to be on the PS4, it's not as much as it used to be on the PS3. And recently I saw a really amazing video that I'll tell you guys in a second that actually really explains where we at and where we going. And I wanted to actually talk about my retro love that is starting to come online as of late, because I do think that originality in terms of games and gameplay really lies on what games used to be. And I think we have to take a page from the past in order to move forward in the future, in order to gain back that originality and keep moving forward, because we lost something along the way. And I want to talk more about it in this video. Let's do it. Alright, welcome to another video. I hope you guys are doing well. Thanks a lot for actually tuning in. For all those that are new to the channel, my name is Harvey Newman. I like to share my passion for video games, game production, animation, and much more here in this channel. Now, before we go ahead and get knees deep on this subject that we're going to talk about in this video, I wanted to highlight the animation course that I'm about to release. So, a little update. Just before we get into the video, the animation course most likely is going to happen this August that we're going to release it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, or if you haven't signed up for the waiting list, definitely check the link down below, because you'll be able to actually sign up for the course waiting list, and then you get notified as soon as it's out. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the main subject of this video today. So there is something that we lost from going from the retro consoles, PS2, PS3, PS1 even, and just talking about the PlayStation and also Xbox, to now. And it's something that has been rummaging in my mind, and it's because I've been in the industry for about 20 plus years. And recently I saw a video called Targeting and Market Research by Masahiro Sakurai. Definitely sign up for his channel if you haven't so far, but it's incredibly interesting. So I actually have that channel to notify me as soon as any video comes out, because the knowledge that he drops is incredibly golden, and it should be something that you guys should 100% check out on a weekly or monthly basis whenever the videos come out. But basically, in a nutshell, what he was talking about is very much like how the market or marketing and analysis and research fuels or gives information about decisions that publishers make on what games should they release next. Now, he creates a divide or creates a line between creativity and market research, because there is such a thing as if you actually lean too much towards one or towards other, you end up just basically either not having a game that is successful if you just focus on creativity, or you end up with a game that is samey, and you end up just with the same thing over and over and over again, which is a problem. And I do think that this is where the crux of the problem lies here, where we in the West specifically, we focus so much on market research and what is popular, right? That we then do a lot of the same, right? If multiplayer, if hero shooters, if this, if that, then basically everybody goes ahead and just works on that. And that's going to be that for the next 5 years. And then, the estimations show this and show the other. Now, I do think Nintendo is one of the companies that I admire the most, if not the most, out there, because I do think they have a really nice balance, because they put creativity almost slightly above a market research, whatever it takes to actually make the game creative and fun. That's what we will do, and then we'll go ahead and look at market research and see what information do we have that actually is useful for this type of game. And I love that. He explains it way better than I'm doing right now, so definitely watch the video. But it planted a seed in my mind, because I think we all feeling very much that games nowadays kind of like feel like each other a lot of the time. And to me, in my mind, it was very much about we kind of boxed these genres of games. Like there's everything needs to fit in a box, and if it doesn't, then it's not really a game that people want to play, even though it's original. But if it fits in a box, then people know I like an RPG, or I like a JRPG, or I like a action adventure, or I like a online multiplayer. Then is the my kind of game. And I think we actually kind of like boxed ourselves in our wants in so much like into these things that I feel like if it's not doesn't fit in this box, then I won't try it. And I do think that going back in time, we didn't really have those boxes. We just have, is this game fun or is it not fun? So this is where my kind of like journey, even before this video that I just mentioned before, kind of started going kind of retro, right? And the whole thing started because I actually got an iPod, and I realized through listening to my music to the iPod that I was not distracted when listening to music, and I was not skipping artists all the time, which is something that Spotify and iTunes do nowadays, and they do brilliantly, suggesting new music, but you end up like listening to single tracks. And I thought this was brilliant, so what if we apply this to games? So now fast forward to today, I now bought a PS3, even though I sold mine years ago, and also an Xbox 360. So which I actually like in great condition, by the way. They look absolutely amazing. And here's my PS3, now all cleaned up and looking absolutely amazing. Now that we have these consoles, I have bought a stack of games that are relatively cheap nowadays if you buy them secondhand. And I started playing them, and I started having a feel for how games used to look about 10-15 years ago to now, right? And it's crazy the amount of changes that you can see, especially from my perspective, like actually having tested and worked in some of these games, where a lot of the creativity and like, you know, development muscle was put into creating originality within the game. So what can we make in this game that is going to be different than the last one if it's a sequel? And if it's a brand new game, how can we actually make this game stand out from the rest? And what kind of mechanics can we actually do? I do think that at that point in time, right, I think that market research had a less of an impact in the games industry than it is having right now. And I think that is part of the result of why this generation, I think we are in the 6th generation now of consoles, it doesn't really have many games as much as the PS4. PS4 has a massive catalog of games that are incredibly successful, while PS5 and the Xbox, and the latest Xbox, have very little in terms of unique titles, right? There's something to be said about, like, you know, each console or each platform wanting to have exclusives all the time, which is less of a thing nowadays. And back in the day, Microsoft and Sony were at war in a way with each other to outdo each other in order to get the best titles exclusively to their consoles, which then meant that the scrutiny and the amount of titles they had to release was incredibly high, and the quality had to be incredibly high, which then meant that the player, the consumer, actually won because of this war, because of this having exclusivity left, right, and center. And just to kind of like drive the point home, even though I bought a stack of games, there was about 3 or 4 games that I actually have for you guys to showcase here, just to kind of like drive home the idea of the originality on this game. So the first one that I wanted to highlight is Bionic Commando. This game came out, I don't remember exactly when this game came out, but we'll put the date of when this game came out in the video. But this game here is an example on creating really interesting mechanics that actually play incredibly well and are a lot of fun to do. You have a bionic arm, hence why Bionic Commando, and then you basically use it as a grappling hook, and you actually use it to either pull enemies to you, kill them, or swing about and all that stuff. And the whole thing was about swing mechanics and grappling things with your bionic arm, right? That was basically the basic premise of this game. Now, I doubt a game like this would actually be very successful nowadays, and the reason why is because it's very simple, right? But when you actually play the game, it never feels simple. It actually feels incredibly challenging, and it's really, really, really hard. And I'm actually having a lot of fun playing it. I do remember the grappling hook, the grappling arm that the character had, and I remember how much fun it was, but I didn't quite understood really how much fun the whole game was until I started playing it again. And now that I'm in it, I cannot stop, which is really cool. So highly recommended, awesome game. Once again, game mechanics up the wazoo that actually are incredibly original. And after this game, the grappling hook became a thing. And it was a thing before, but it became a big thing because this game was actually reviewed incredibly well. So this game, really good example of a game with amazing mechanics, a game that actually is a lot of fun, even though it's simple. The premise is simple, but the end result is much bigger than the sum of its parts. The other game that I actually been playing a lot is DSX. And DSX is actually a game that I think that this new trend that we have nowadays of having really huge maps that feel almost infinite, open worlds and all these other things, they are great and they work in specific games, but in other games it feels almost like a gimmick. So Elden Ring does it incredibly well, for example, and the latest Legend of Zelda also same, but it kind of feels like tacked on because it's one other trend that is going around right now. And this game has a much smaller map. To today's standards, this map is incredibly small, and it has one map and you never feel like the map is too small because there's a lot of intricacy to the map. You can stealth, you can move around, you can do a bunch of different things, secret passages and stuff. Beautiful, beautiful game. You never once think about the level design being too small. And it's another example that in today's time, today, we actually get hung up in certain things that perhaps shouldn't be so kind of like, big, such as the size of a level. Another one that I've been having a lot of fun. I love racing games, by the way. I've been a big fan of Gran Turismo for the longest time and all these other things, but I actually forgot about MotorStorm. MotorStorm was a game that came out, I think it was like a release game for the PS3 when it came out, because it had lots of physics and the terrain you deform and stuff like that. And I've been playing this again. And even though, once again, very simple game, you just go around and around in circles on a path that has different paths and stuff, but the amount of fun that you have in this game, just exploding against things and trying to outrun vehicles when you're a bike against a tractor or whatever it is really nice. It's really cool, and I highly recommend it. Once again, simple premise, incredibly well executed. And I don't know exactly where this game would actually fall into nowadays, because we have racing sims, and then we have arcade sims, and then we have rally games, and this is kind of like the last two, maybe. But once again, it's not boxed into one category. It's very much like a mix of quite a few, which is another example. And last but definitely not least is the Orange Box. The Orange Box by Valve is actually an amazing, not only a lot of value because you have 3 games in one, but I think every single game it showcases exactly what we're missing right now in the industry, I think. And Half-Life Episode 2, classic game. And there's so much to say about this game in terms of the quality of the game, in terms of the level design, the surprises, the guns, the originality. But first and foremost, it kind of showcases that a game, no matter how old it is, can still be fun now, right? And a lot of the gameplay and the weapon mechanics and all that stuff they implemented back then are now standard because of this game, because of Half-Life. But it kind of shows that Valve at that point in time was thinking outside the box so much that what they did worked for the most part, that other games started copying it till today is now standard, which is incredibly amazing for Valve. But it kind of shows that there's a lot of repetition, and we're getting to a point now that if it doesn't have certain things, then it's not really a first-person shooter. I don't think Valve was thinking about it in those terms when it was creating a Half-Life and Half-Life 2. They were just creating an authentic story with authentic mechanics that actually feel good and actually look good. And I think it was all about the narrative of the story and about how good it feels. I don't think it was ever about this game has done this, therefore let's copy it. We also have Team Fortress 2. That was another game that was incredibly simple, even though it's multiplayer. A lot of fun, repetition, you could play it for hours, right? Just like GoldenEye back in the day on the Nintendo 64, but instead of couch co-op, it was multiplayer. At least that's how I saw it. And it was just this looping repetition of characters that were incredibly well balanced that you can play online for hours and hours on end. And then lastly, one of my favorite games ever, Portal. And Portal, like, I mean, is the epitome to me, is the epitome of originality. It's not only about the game mechanic that it has never seen before, but it's also how they implemented this game mechanic with an original story. Because if those two things don't come together in a way that is cohesive, it can never make sense really, and it either doesn't feel good or it's kind of lacking, or it doesn't have a good story to go with the mechanic. So if you actually fall into one of these two groups, your game is kind of like short in terms of your game is kind of like lacking. But if you actually get the balance quite right, just like Portal did, it's an absolute must, and people revere you and your studio for it. So all of these things, I've been thinking about it because of Proxima, because of the game that we're working on right now called Warship Jolly Roger, that, you know, there's a lot of things to decide when you're creating a game from nothing. But I do think that going back, getting an old school console, playing games, studying those games, what made them good, what made them bad. Not all games were great. Obviously, we have a fondness to think about stuff in a way that actually is like, it was so amazing before and now it's kind of crap. But I kind of think that, at least from my perspective, that is very true nowadays. And I think everybody's seeing it so much that people are now preferring to go retro and getting an old console like a PS4 to play their games than to actually buy a new console, which is kind of sad. It kind of just signifies the state of the industry and how people are feeling about games nowadays. So yeah, I hope we can go back to that era where we kind of like praise originality and praise, like, you know, thinking outside the box a little bit more than we praise marketing research and what sells and how much and all these other things that we just getting hung up upon nowadays so much that we end up just creating pretty much the same game with a different skin, which is incredibly sad for myself as a developer, for myself as a gamer. So I hope we actually go past that. So this goes for animation, this goes for every single department in games, so it's more of a generic video. So it'll be interesting to know, what do you guys think about this? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Either way, leave a comment down below and let me know what do you think about, you know, this retro versus current situation that we have going on. If you search YouTube for anything retro, console, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 or whatever, you will find that there's lots of channels out there thriving, going to, I don't know, just like, you know, shops that sell things secondhand to actually kind of like get amazing games, amazing consoles, and building a library, building a collection of games just for the sake of going back in time, that memory, that thing that it used to feel about sitting down with a game, single player, feels amazing. So do let me know what you guys think about this. And if you watched this video up to now and you enjoyed it and you're not subscribed, then I ask you, if you don't mind, subscribe, give it a like, and comment once again about how do you feel about the situation, past versus future, where we've been and where we're going, and some of the lessons that we can learn from it. And that's all I had for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it as usual, and as always, stay well, stay safe. Peace.